This week I had not much time to make something here in my workshop, so I thought, why not comment on some comments. I finished my 4 tool holders and some of you commented that in fact it's quite an achievement because after all it is a complicated shape. Well, I don't think so. If you look at this as is, I can understand that maybe it looks a little bit scary to start making something myself like this because, well, no, in fact it's very easy. If you look at it step by step, just like a puzzle. We start from a piece of steel that we made square, all sides. I suppose that's not really complicated. Next step, we cut the slot. I don't think it's really complicated. It's just a square piece of steel with a slot in it. A square piece of steel with a slot in it, with 2 slots in it. And for the cutting tool that I used, it's just a piece of high-speed steel welded on a, I think, 10mm piece of plate or something. That's all. The only thing you have to think a little bit about is that when you weld one side, the piece of high-speed steel will bow while cooling. So if you weld a bit too much, it will bow too much and break, but no problem, start again and then it works. The next step is to cut a right shoulder, but at 45 degrees. Something like this, for example. I don't think that's really complicated, cutting a right shoulder. Why not? Of course I made now 1, but in my part there are 2. So start again the other side. That's all. And the last operation is of course to cut this slot. It's a bit like the first slot, but on the other side. I don't really see a problem. And then of course drill and tap the holes and put the bolts in. And so if you see it step by step, it's not complicated. Just go for it. In my last video, in the comments, there was also a lot to do about my broken tabs. Now I know this kind of tabs you have to spin them about 1 rotation and then break the chip, turn them backwards. I know this. And they need oil. I know this too, no problem. And these are quality tabs. I don't like to buy these shit tabs from, for example, Amazon, like these. Now I had to buy this set because I needed a 3mm tab, and here in the neighborhood they hadn't for the moment. So I bought these, so at least I could continue my little project. That's all. All the others you see here, all this is high quality. And this tab I just showed you is one of the set of 3 that I bought about 12 years ago. And the first project I made with this, it was a kind of parapet and a handrail. I had to tap over 100 holes. So if I say now that this tap made maybe total of 1000 holes, I don't think I'm really far. So as you can see, I don't break much tabs. I broke this one last week and I broke a 3mm tab a few months ago, and that's it. All the others you see here, they're all many years old and high quality. 99% of the tapping work I do by hand, because the drill press or the milling machine doesn't feel anything. If you work by feel, you don't break taps. The only time I break them is because I have these uncontrolled movements, and that is since my health problems. So I'm tapping very carefully, and then something makes a short circuit up here and my arm is moving and the tap breaks sideways, never in a twist. So it's a shit happens moment. I think it can happen to everyone, but breaking 2 taps in more than 10 years, I think that's a good score. And now let's talk, for example, angle grinders. As you can see, I have 2 and a big one. And a comment that several times comes back is that I use my angle grinder without a guard and without a handle, and I don't wear gloves. And indeed, and there is a very good reason for this. First of all, over the years I bought a lot of angle grinders. I'm not sure, but it could well be that this is number 8 and number 9, and all the others I completely worn out, completely dead, and brought to the recycling park. Which means I have a lot of flight hours using angle grinders. Of course, that's not a valid reason to forget about safety. I think safety is important, but don't push it too far. The only reason there is a guard on this kind of machines is to prevent you from cutting in your fingers, which I think is a little bit stupid, because why should you cut your fingers? But you never know. Of course, if you work with gloves, gloves are a little bit slippery. They can slide on the surface of the machine. And also you lose a big part of the feel. You don't feel your machine when you work with gloves. And then indeed, if your machine slides a bit in your hand, it could be that you cut in your fingers. If I want to make a cut in this part here, I will cut it here in the length. I use one hand to hold the part, and of course the other hand to start and stop the machine. I have always my thumb in the neighborhood of the switch. And if there's no guard on the thing, the sparks will fly around everywhere, but in line with the disc. The only part of my body that will be touched by these sparks is my arm here. That's all. I'm gonna cut the same part, but with my other machine with the guard. First thing we see is that the guard is touching the part, so the thing is in the way. And here on this one there's no quick release to change the angle, so I have to take spanners, and no one does this. So what do? We twist the machine. But this is a way less natural way of holding the machine. It works, but it's not easy to perform. Now, what's happening? The sparks, instead of flying out all directions, they stay in the guard and they come out sideways and right in your face. Now, if I can choose with guard or without guard, I feel much better without. When I'm cutting a part like this one. Of course, I'm not sitting here on my chair and look at it like this, but you get the point. A part like this one, and I want to make a cut in the length, cut it like this in the length. In this kind of material or in constructions, there is always a lot of stress. Which means if you cut and the cut ends, you don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe this part is gonna open, or maybe it's gonna pinch the disc. And this is where it can go south. So if I have to cut a part like this one, I will cut almost completely through, and at the end I leave a very tiny little tang that keeps the part in place. And then by hand or even with the angle grinder, very slowly, very easy, cut the last piece away and then see what happens. But because the disc is not really in the material, it cannot pinch. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that using angle grinders is not dangerous. It is. I like to use these 1 mm thickness cutting discs. And if you use these can break, but you break them. The disc itself doesn't break if you buy quality discs, of course. The disc will break in the groove if you're very deep and you give it a twist. Game over. So don't. What I had once, I used several times this flap discs, and I had a low quality, and the little pieces of sandpaper, they came off. So it was a bit like a cannon fire, and the whole lot of discs I had the same. Of course, they ended up in the trash bin before I even used them. So these, if you have quality stuff, you will never have problems. If you use these with a guard, the guard is also always in the way. So it's your choice. Now, what can really be dangerous for your hands is this kind of steel brushes. When I use these, I always wear gloves, because these pieces of wire, they break off and fly you don't know where. So this can be really dangerous, and if these wires grip your skin while spinning, I leave it to your imagination. Of course, if you write in the comments things about safety and danger and all this, I understand and I appreciate your concern, so keep them coming. But once I had a comment that started with "you're a jerk," so I hope this person doesn't expect any sympathy from my way. And now something completely different. For example, talking about YouTube. I think we all do the same. We like to enjoy watching some videos on YouTube just for the fun of watching it, or sometimes also for information or to learn something or whatever. But the last couple of months it's getting a little bit difficult. And that is of course because of commercials. There are way too much commercials on YouTube. Now, in the beginning I used an ad blocker and it worked perfectly fine, so no problem. But now that YouTube started a war against the ad blockers, you can't watch YouTube anymore if you use an ad blocker. So you have to turn it off, and YouTube is gonna squeeze commercials into your brains. And even worse, since the new YouTube policy, you can't show violence, you can't show demolished buildings or whatever. So if you like, just like me, watch the news, that looks a little bit like this or like this. And below these two screenshots I left the channel names so you can check out for yourself that it is not a makeup, this is absolutely true. These people and a lot of others, they do a lot, and I mean a really lot of work and research to make their videos. And if they can't talk about things that are happening every day, or if they can't even show what's happening, I don't see the point anymore. And the result is, of course, because of all these ads and all this censor in these videos, I spend way less time on YouTube than I used to. And I think I'm not alone. There are many other people. And I found a really nice substitute. No batteries, no updates, no commercials, and it smells good. Like this, it just looks like a pile of paper, right? But when you open it and you start reading, it brings you in a world full of imagination, or science, or history, or poems, or whatever. And when you close it, it still smells good. So, in my opinion, YouTube just shot itself in the foot. Of course, there is a solution. If you want, you can go to YouTube Prime or something that they call it, and if you pay, I think, somewhere between $10 and $15 for 1 month, you can do YouTube ad free. But there is a but. Imagine that I open my window and I install a pair of powerful speakers in the window, and all day long I'm gonna blast stupid music to my neighbor's house. And then I'm gonna tell my neighbor, oh, if you want I can cut off the music, but it's gonna cost you about somewhere between $10 and $15 a month. I think that's a little bit a mafia system. A bit like, if you pay us, we will protect your business against us. That's not how it works. So if, for example, I have a choice, one side to pay YouTube to block all the commercials, or pay for ad blocker to block all the commercials, I know my choice. I will pay for the ad blocker, not for the mafia system. And remember, every time YouTube puts up a commercial, another cat will commit suicide. And I love cats.